Hi there, I'm James from Liverpool John Moores University and I'm going to teach you a bit about the classification of climates, and if you want to know more, just let me know. So let me tell you about some of the major influences that we have on our climate. First things that we're going to be looking at is temperature and precipitation, but also we need to have an understanding of how these actually affect our climate, after which I'm going to break down and tell you exactly how we classify each one. First of all, I'm going to show you a quick demonstration. What I'm going to show you now is a very quick demonstration how the Earth's solar rays is actually spread over the further away you go over the equator. So as you can see here, that the beam is very concentrated along the middle line here, in between here. Imagine this to be the equator, and as it goes further up, the solar rays, you can see the beam is actually getting wider, more spread apart, so the heat is not as concentrated, and the further north you go, it just completely spreads out and eventually misses the air completely, until eventually it misses. So the diagram I have here actually demonstrates what effects the solar radiation has on our climate. In the middle here you can see that we have a very, once the Earth hits the equator, very close to the equator line, that we have a high pressure, which allows the heat to rise from the Earth, comes back down and actually causes low pressure. Now in these areas, very close to the equator, that we actually have high vegetation rates, which also means a high precipitation evapotranspiration rate. As well as a lot of vegetation. So because of that we have actually quite a wet climate. In between that we have a very dry climate, which doesn't actually get any form of rain, as it has very low average rain count throughout the year. And then above that again we have the wet. Up here, very known to us, is Europe, so that's why we have very mixed seasons. And then again at the top here we have a very dry climate. This is known as the polar regions. I know what you're thinking, snow, wet, but it actually has a very low count. It's just because when it does rain or snow, which is also considered into precipitation, it doesn't actually melt, it just builds up on top of each other. Here now I'm going to very quickly talk to you about ocean currents. Now we have what we call a conveyor system, where ocean currents actually goes all the way around the world. But what I'm going to focus on now, is just to give you a demonstration, is the Gulf Stream. The Gulf Stream pushes warm water up towards the polar caps, and then back from the polar caps back down to the North Atlantic Ocean. Okay, here we can actually see a major effect that it has on us, because we get the warm waters coming up, which actually keep our climate nice and warm, but we also get the cold waters coming down. So we have a very good high season, good seasons for this. So if it wasn't for the warm waters going up, the UK would freeze because of the ocean waters through marine precipitation. And if it wasn't for the cold waters going down, we'd have a much hotter climate in the UK, which would also mean higher vegetation rates, similar to what you'd see close to the equator.